San Diego and the Ramona country. Romantic? Yes, indeed. Especially to this honeymoon couple. We enter the city along a smooth, wide stretch of engineering genius known as the Cabrillo Freeway. San Diego Mission, parched by the sun for nearly 2 centuries, still stands as a landmark of worship. In the heart of San Diego, Balboa Park, with 1,400 acres of vivid floral pattern, is called the garden spot of the world. Still another reminder of California's yesteryear, the old ferry, the last of its kind, which makes its daily visits to Coronado. A short trip from the mainland takes us to romantic Coronado by the Sea and the Hotel del Coronado, famous resort playground of the area. In the valley of San Jacinto, the Indian girl Ramona comes to life every year in pageant and play and legend. Here, Ramona was married. Here, her lover, Alessandro, was killed. Yet Ramona is a fictitious character who lived only in a book. Heading away from Lake Elsinore and the Ramona country, we come to another famous spot, Capistrano, inspiration for poet and dreamer. Yes, California is a land of legend, but of reality too. You and your family can enjoy the vacation thrills of this fabulous land. No matter where you live, you can reach it quickly, comfortably, and with utmost economy. Travel this year the roads to romance, to places you have always wanted to go. And when you travel, go in one of the quality motor cars your Chevrolet dealer has to offer. It will be your magic carpet to the land of your heart's desire.
Hello?
Welcome.
This is the Two Cities.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Hello, and welcome back to Tales of Two Cities podcast. I'm Nikki, and this episode is brought to you by one of our most special fans, Yoshara. She's been supporting us since very early on, and when she requested an episode on the Whaley House, we added it to our list. But it's been a while, and if I'm being honest, it's because we wanted to make sure that this episode was great. For y'all, and mostly for Yoshara. So sit back and enjoy 2 stories from San Diego. On October 5th, 1823, Thomas Whaley was born in New York City. He was the 7th child in a family of 10. He took over his father's business and left New York in 1849, drawn to the West Coast while California was immersed in the gold rush, a time where people from all over the country went west in search of some fast money and a better life. He ended up in San Francisco, conducting business before moving to San Diego in 1851. After a brief return to New York, marrying Anna Eloise Delaunay in 1853, the two settled back in San Diego in the same year. But it wasn't until 1857 that the Whaleys moved into their home, which today is still known as the Whaley House. Built in 1857, the home is a 2-story Greek Revival-style residence. Thomas himself designed and constructed the home beginning in 1856. The home cost more than $10,000 to build. That's more than $314,000 today. It sits in Old Town San Diego. The house was the first of its kind in Southern California. It was furnished extravagantly with mahogany and rosewood furniture, Brussels carpets, and fancy drapes. It was considered a mansion for the time and place. Thomas was proud of his home, saying, quote, My new house, when completed, will be the handsomest, most comfortable, and convenient place in the town, or within 150 miles of here. And he was right. It became a gathering place for many in San Diego, and over its history was the first commercial theater, county courthouse, and general store in San Diego. In October 1868, the upstairs family bedroom was converted to a theater. Thomas had rented the room to a local theater troupe, the Tanner Troupe, who had been traveling through San Diego. The troupe's opening night performance was held in the room with a few benches, a small stage, and nearly 150 guests. Because it was anticipated to be a large showing of people, women were advised to not wear their hoop skirts, as it would be standing room only. Unfortunately, the troupe disbanded after leader Thomas Tanner died just 2 weeks after the opening. The County of San Diego also leased the courtroom and 3 upstairs bedrooms for $65 a month from the Whaleys. And for a time, the Whaley and Crossway General Store operated, selling wholesale and retail to the people of San Diego. Though, first and foremost, it was the family's home. During their time there, the Whaleys had 6 children: Francis, Thomas Jr., Anna, George, Violet, and Corinne. Tragically, though, not uncommon for the time, Thomas Jr. suffered a bout of scarlet fever at 18 months old. This is the same illness that took Helen Keller's hearing and sight. Not as fortunate as Helen, Thomas Jr. died on January 2nd, 1858. Loss comes in waves. Around the time of his son's death, the Whaleys also lost their store to a fire. This prompted the family to move to Thomas's old haunt, San Francisco. Whaley turned his affairs in San Diego over to Frank Ames, a Wells Fargo agent. But the Whaleys' distance from San Diego didn't last long. In 1868, Thomas invested in a stock of merchandise, which brought him back to Old Town. He fixed up the Whaley house, and Anna brought the children back to San Diego in 1868. Daughters Violet and Anna were both married on January 5th, 1882. Violet married George Bertolacci, and Anna married her first cousin, John Whaley. What should have been an exciting and joyous time for the family was met with sadness. Violet's new marriage didn't last long. 2 weeks in, the couple was traveling east on their honeymoon, and Violet woke to find her new husband gone. George was a con artist, looking for the substantial dowry expected in a marriage to a woman of such wealth. When he discovered that he wouldn't be getting one, he fled. And due to the repressive social expectations of Victorian society, when Violet returned home without her husband or a proper chaperone, she was shunned. The humiliation was too much. She suffered from severe depression. Violet shot herself in the chest on August 18, 1885. She was just 22 years old. Her suicide note read, quote, "Mad from life's history, swift to death's mystery, glad to be hurled anywhere, anywhere out of this world." It's a passage from Bridge of Sighs, a poem written by Thomas Hood and celebrated by Edgar Allan Poe. Violet's suicide shocked many. It was a scandal for the family, so much so that Sister Corinne, who was engaged at the time of her sister's death, did not end up marrying. Her fiancé broke off the engagement because of the social outrage surrounding the family's loss. Wanting to flee the tragedy and chaos of this period, Thomas built a new home for his family in downtown San Diego. The Whaley house went vacant for over 2 decades. On December 14th, 1890, Thomas Whaley died due to ill health at the new Whaley residence. In 1909, Francis undertook the restoration of the original Whaley house after decades of disrepair. His goal was to turn the home into a tourist attraction. He began posting signs promoting the history of the home and even entertained guests with his guitar. By 1912, Anna, Corinne, Francis, and George were living in the old Whaley house. On February 24th, 1913, Anna died. A year later, Francis died. At this point, the only members of the Whaley family who were still alive were George and Corinne. George died in 1928, and Corinne continued to live in the home until her death in 1953. Today, the house is a historical house museum. It was opened as such on May 25, 1960, and was managed by the San Diego Historical Shrine Foundation until 2002, when the Save Our Heritage organization began maintaining the home. Since 2007, there has been a live caretaker on the property to prevent theft and vandalism. Each family member had a connection to the home, which leads many to believe that the shadows and moving figures spotted there are in fact the Whaleys. The home has frequently been cited as haunted, due to strange noises and sights reported by visitors. In the 1960s, the Whaley House was designated an official haunted house by the United States Commerce Department, and in 2005, Life magazine reported the Whaley House was, quote, the most haunted house in America. Visitors have reported seeing apparitions of Thomas and Anna. The former curator of the museum, June Redding, said, quote, we had a little girl, perhaps 5 or 6 years old, who waved to a man she said was standing in the parlor. We couldn't see him, but often children's sensitivity is greater than an adult's. End quote. Many adults report Mr. Whaley standing on the upper landing. One visitor said he was clad in a frock coat and pantaloons. The face turned away from her, so she couldn't make it out, and suddenly it faded away. Mrs. Whaley is also reported, though usually downstairs or in the garden. Television personality Regis Philbin saw Mrs. Whaley in 1964. He reported, quote, all of a sudden, I noticed something on the wall. There was something filmy white, and it looked like an apparition of some kind. I got so excited I couldn't restrain myself. I flipped on the flashlight, and nothing was there but a portrait of Anna Whaley, the long-dead mistress of the house, end quote. Others have mentioned seeing a woman in the courthouse, a small woman with a long, full skirt, either calico or gingham print. She's described as having dark hair and dark eyes. She's wearing gold hoops in her ears and stays only in that room. The description doesn't fit any of the Whaleys, but she could have been one of the many tenants that lived in the home over the years. There's also a young girl seen in the dining room. Psychic Sybil Leek encountered this young girl in the 1960s. Sybil described the girl as long-haired, with a longish dress, and very quick. She went to the table as Sybil went to a chair, and many believe this spirit could be that of a playmate of the Whaley children, who accidentally broke her neck on a low-hanging clothesline in the backyard. Her name is believed to be Annabelle or Carrie Washburn. There's no record of a child dying in this way, or that of a Washburn family residing in San Diego, so many believe this particular legend to have been started by an employee of the Whaley House. But it may not be the Whaleys that are haunting the home. Others have cited the location as the problem. It is believed to have been built where a graveyard once stood, but perhaps it was one specific, more violent instance that was the origin of the house's haunting. Shortly after the family moved, they reported hearing footsteps in the house. They believed it to be the ghost of James Yankee Jim Robinson. He'd been hanged off of gallows on the back of a wagon on the property where the house now stands. He was convicted of attempted grand larceny for stealing a boat in 1852. The local newspaper reported that, quote, he kept his feet in the wagon as long as possible, but was finally pulled off. He swung back and forth like a pendulum until he was strangled to death, end quote. Thomas was present for the execution, but still purchased the land a few years later. Visitors have also mentioned interacting with his specter. One visitor mentioned to her family that she'd been spooked out of the house years earlier when her mother couldn't handle hearing the footsteps or watching the way the window latches would unlatch themselves and fly open. Perhaps Yankee Jim just really wants out of that house.
On Thanksgiving Day, a forlorn woman strolled into the lobby of the famous Hotel de Coronado. She told the hotel employees that she was waiting for a mysterious gentleman to join her. After 5 lonely days, she took her own life. While some might be shocked and disturbed by the vague end of Kate Morgan, it is simply the history of Hotel de Coronado. Hotel de Coronado is a historic beachfront hotel in the city of Coronado, just across the San Diego Bay from San Diego, California. It is one of the last surviving Victorian beach resort styles and the second largest wooden structure in the United States. It became a national landmark in 1977. When it opened in 1888, it was the largest resort hotel in the world. Its splendor was visited by celebrities and royalties alike. It really was a marvelous feat. In the mid-1880s, the San Diego region was in the midst of one of its first real estate booms. At that time, it was common for a developer to build a grand hotel as a draw for what would otherwise be a barren landscape. The Hollywood Hotel in Hollywood, California, the Raymond Hotel in Pasadena, the Hotel de Monte Monterey, and the Hotel Redondo in Redondo Beach were similar grand hotels built as development enticements during that era. Hotel de Coronado was conceived by two retired Midwestern businessmen, Elijah Babcock Jr. and Hampton Story, who became acquainted after moving to San Diego. Their vision was thus: it will be built around a court, a garden of tropical trees, shrubs, and flowers. From the south end, the foyer should open to Glorietta Bay, with verandas for rest and promenade. On the ocean corner, there should be a pavilion tower, and northward along the ocean, a colonnade, terraced in grass to the beach. The dining wing should project an angle from the southwest corner of the court and almost detached to give full value to the view of the ocean, city, and bay. Architect James Reed experienced some challenges making the great building. Reed's plans had to be revised constantly and had to deal with fire hazards. A freshwater pipeline was to run under San Diego Bay. Water tanks and gravity flow sprinklers were installed. He also built two giant cisterns with concrete walls a foot thick in the basement to store rainwater. The cisterns were never used for rainwater, but were reputedly used for storing alcoholic beverages during Prohibition. Reed also installed the world's first oil furnace in the new hotel, providing reasons for the Los Angeles Oil Company to bring oil tankers to Coronado. Reed also installed electric lighting, making the hotels the world's first. Gas and electric lines traveled the building together, so if one didn't work, the other would kick into gear. In 1904, Hotel de Coronado introduced the world's first electrically lit outdoor living Christmas tree. It states on the December 25, 1904 San Diego Union, the tree selected for the honor is one of the three splendid Norfolk Island pines on the plaza, grassy area in front of the hotel. It has attained a height of 50 feet and its branches stand proudly forth. All day yesterday, electricians were busy fitting it up, and by night, 250 lights of many colors gave beauty to the fine old pine. Lanterns, great and small, hung from its bough. And now that an open-air Christmas tree has been introduced, it is likely that another Christmas Eve will find many California gardens aglow with lights scattered from the living foliage. When the 399-room hotel opened for business February 1888, 1,440 San Diegans traveled across the bay. And mind you, these 1,440 San Diegans had a lot to marvel at, like the Olympic-sized saltwater pool, tennis courts, and a yacht club with architecture resembling the hotel's grand tower. The more unique amenities were a Japanese tea garden, an ostrich farm, billiards, bowling alleys, hunting expeditions, and deep-sea fishing. During World War II, many West Coast resorts and hotels were taken over by U.S. government for use as housing and hospitals. The Hotel de Coronado housed many pilots who were being trained at nearby North Island Naval Air Station on a contract basis, but it was never commandeered. Since there were so many extra rooms, the manager was able to convince the naval officer that, quote, the fathers, mothers, and wives should be given priority to the rooms because it may be the last time they will ever see their sons and husbands, end quote. Ultimately, the Navy agreed, and the hotel was never fully seized. Some of the famous visitors of the estate have been Thomas Edison, L. Frank Baum, Charlie Chaplin, several presidents, and Oprah. But all of those celebrity sightings don't come close to this famous guest. No, this permanent resident keeps the hotel staff and the guests on their toes. Who I'm talking about is Kate Morgan. On November 24th, 1892, Kate checked into the room 302, then 3312, now 3327. She told the staff she was awaiting the arrival of her brother, who was a doctor. Kate Morgan was born Kate Farmer in Fremont County, Iowa, around the year 1864. On December 30th, 1885, Kate married Thomas Edwin Morgan and had a son, who only lived for 2 days. Around 1890, Kate ran off with Albert Allen, a stepson of Tom's stepmother, Emily Dennison Allen Morgan, and then proceeded to live her life as a housemaid by the Grant family in Los Angeles. She always told her co-workers she was married to a gambler. Kate told the staff that her brother was going to treat her stomach cancer, but he never arrived. Instead, she was found dead, leading on the steps to the beach 3 days later. The case was declared a suicide. She had shot herself in the head. However, in the 1980s, a San Francisco lawyer brought into question the initial assessment, citing that the bullet found in her head did not match that of her own gun. There have been several ghost sightings and paranormal experiences throughout the history of the hotel. It happened so much that it's even bragged about on their website. The book, Beautiful Stranger, The Ghost of Kate Morgan, and the Hotel del Coronado connects a lot of the ghostly sightings and encounters to Kate's original third-floor guest room. In the room, visitors have experienced flickering lights, a television that turns itself on and off, breezes coming from nowhere, inexplicable scents and sounds, items moving on their own, doors opening and closing, etc. Various paranormal researchers have studied the room with their gadgets and gizmos, never fully finding anything definitive. But needless to say, it's the most desired room in the hotel. Kate has been sighted several times wearing an 1800s black dress in the hotel hallways and along the seashore. She has been noted to enter either a room or standing by a window as if she's waiting for someone. There's also been reports that she haunts the gift shop as well. Visitors and employees have routinely witnessed giftware mysteriously flying off the shelves, falling upright, and always remaining unbroken. Clearly, Kate prefers a good deal. I've always loved strange and bizarre cities, but San Diego has always had something I could never really connect to. I didn't get it. It looks like a city with a semi-Disneyland persona, mixed with surfer hippies. It was always an empty void striving to find an identity. It was a pseudo-town, something I couldn't really grasp. However, after doing this episode, I discovered that there is one consistent thing about San Diego. Despite its changing exterior, its interior has always been rooted to where it all began. With the surfing bros and comical gas lamp district comes a history that spans longer than the nation it stands on today. It started with the people of La Jolla traveling to what is now San Diego. Even though we as a species evolve and grow, designing new looks and refreshed designs, we still have snippets of where we all come from. Maybe that's why we have these ghost stories. They aren't solely a metaphysical solution to an unknown, but are in fact a reminder of where we all came from, and how we got here, and what we did to get here. If you would like to reach out to us, you can do so on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and talesofthe2cities@gmail.com. Also, if you would like to hear an episode on your state, please contact us. We would love to cover it. If you would like more goodies from us, check out our Patreon. With Patreon, we offer you a way to fully become one of the team, as well as receive gifts and prizes. You can support us by checking out our merch store, which is listed on the Facebook website and on our Instagram. Also, subscribing and rating to us on your podcast device helps us a lot too. It really does. But above all, and most importantly, thank you.